to be a part of something where you have to reach every household and connect with the broad diversity that is our country. So we're excited for these ads and these communications to start rolling out, and for people to feel like the census means something for them and they can see why they should be a part of it. But we also know that there are challenges, and things aren't always going to be easy, and we have barriers that we have to overcome. So I'd like to ask my client and friend, Burton, to join me here from the Census Bureau. As was noted in the introduction, this is not Burton's first rodeo. He was the head of the communications operation in 2010 and is back for a second act here in 2020. And Burton, I wanted to first start a little bit about taking head on one of the issues that we know that we're dealing with, probably not a new one, but the topic of trust in government.
Right.
How do people feel about that, and what is the Census Bureau doing to address that?
So trust in government, and you saw this in Ann's talk. You see this in our advertising campaign for sure, but the other component of our communications and outreach program is our partnership program. We think of partners. Partners can be national organizations like NALEO or the United States Chambers of Commerce, MALDEF, Mexican American Legal Defense Fund, the National Urban League, but they're also local partners. We have over 300,000 partners now working all over the country, reaching the people that they work with. That might be somebody who works in a legal aid clinic. It might be the head of a faith community, a minister or a pastor, a rabbi, an imam who reaches their communities and carries the message that yes, the census is safe, yes, Census Bureau will never share the data with any other agency, it will never be used for immigration enforcement. We can talk till we're blue in the face, and it's important to have this campaign. We think of it as air cover, but it's the partners who take the messages out of the campaign and they take it to their communities, to the people that they serve, that they help, that they work with every day. These are the trusted voices. We call them the people that seal the deal on answering the census. And we've built a more robust partnership program than we've ever had before as well. But we also know that we have to pattern and sprinkle this through all of our advertising and messaging, and we've done that in this campaign.
We wanted to share a sample of an ad that's being developed specifically for the Hispanic community. There's been a lot of conversation about a citizenship question. A quick quiz, a second, third pop quiz. How many folks think that the census will ask about citizenship in this cycle in 2020? A few of us, yep. So the answer is it's not. The Supreme Court struck that down, but there's still a lot of expectation or thought or misinformation out there that it might be on. So we've run this ad, and I'm hoping there might be a good a person that knows Spanish well that would be willing to help tell us a little bit about this ad after we run it.
No hablo español.
Fantastic.
Bienvenido al vecindario, Juan. Sí, exacto. Qué gusto verte. Bueno, vamos a ver.
Oigan, vi que en la casa están pensando en dar el censo, pero no es peligroso.
Para nada. Hace 10 años estaba como tú. Lo llené. Y mírame, aquí sigo.
Tu información personal no se puede compartir ni con la migra ni con la policía. No te preocupes.
Bueno, pues está bien, ¿no?
¿Listos para ordenar?
¿Nos traen formularios del censo, por favor?
Llena el censo hoy. Dale forma a tu futuro. Empieza aquí.
All right, can you tell us a little bit about what we were hearing in that ad?
So what they're telling is, the person is saying, they did all the census, and the person said, well, but isn't that they're going to share that with the police, con la migra? Migra is a term that the Hispanic community would call the police. And it's called immigration, they call it migration, migra. So he's saying, no, it is safe. I completed last time, so I'm here. So what? You shouldn't be afraid of it. So then the waiter came, and what is your order? Could you bring me the survey, the census? Now I'm ready.
Great, so that's...
I'm drinking more tequila.
Exactly. So we have to address head-on that issue of trust in government, and I think that we've done some good things to try to work on that, partners and going directly at it with our advertising. Another thing that's changed a lot, as we were talking about earlier, Burton, is digital engagement and the whole environment that the census is happening when?
So, I mean, media changes every decade, and now we consume media in so many different ways. We spend about 8% of our budget on digital media in 2010. It's now gone up to about 30%. And digital media helps us in a great way because we can target that to very specific communities with very specific messages. It's in all 12 languages of our campaign. We're actually exploring ways to expand those languages so that we are able to reach more and more communities. There are many, many languages spoken in this country, and partners help us get there too. But digital advertising also helps us be very flexible and fluid. Ann mentioned earlier campaign optimization. We're going to be looking at the data coming in, and when we discover an area of the country or a population group that's not answering the census, or that's maybe experiencing a misinformation campaign, or just their response rates are very low, we'll reshift our messaging and our partnership work and our digital advertising in particular to meet that challenge head on. So that's a huge innovation. But the other thing is that we are now online, as Ann mentioned as well. You can go online and answer the census, and for the first time in any census ever conducted anywhere, you don't have to give us an identification code that we give you first. Ann talked about how we have to put people in the right place. It's always been that identification code that allowed us to do that. We now have, our data are so powerful, our processing systems are so powerful that we can now trust our ability, when you give us your address, to plug you into the right place, into the right household, on our address list that has over 140 million housing units on it. So this means people can answer the census anywhere, anytime. In a month, we could say in this auditorium, at the end of the census, we're all going to take out our smartphones and we're going to answer the census right here. That's a huge innovation. It means that somebody at the end of a community event can get everybody to answer right then, right there in real time. That's a huge breakthrough for us as well.
So the digital has been a positive, but it's also led to some challenges.
That's right.
Because, as we know, the social world isn't always totally friendly. Tell us a little bit about what Census Bureau is doing on this front.
So we built our Trust and Safety Initiative and our Trust and Safety team. And we're going to be watching the entire environment to identify those places where digital, in the digital environment, and where there is misinformation or disinformation campaigns happening. We've also been working throughout the decade with the Department of Homeland Security, not to let them see our data, but to help them share their knowledge about how to keep information systems, digital systems secure. Microsoft, they do this civic engagement called Defending America, Defending Democracy. And they're focused on elections, but they're also focused on the census, and on their own dime. They dive into our systems and help us understand how better to keep them secure. So that's a huge focus of our work, is protecting the census, and we think we're in pretty good shape. We can never be completely confident. We're getting hit by hackers all the time, and we will be, but I think we're in pretty good shape.
There's a lot of civil rights groups as well that have formed their own coalition to regularly monitor social media and keep an eye out and flag for Facebook and YouTube and Pinterest when they see things that they think are intentional efforts to keep people from filling out.
And in fact, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest are all doing their own work with us to communicate directly with us when they see things going on in their domain that might be disinformation or misinformation or fraudulent activity.
And it's already started. You're already seeing it quite a bit.
That's right.
So, great. So last chance to put in a plug for hiring.
So yeah, we're hiring. One of our fundamental commitments is to do everything we can to hire people from the communities where they live. When we send those people out to knock on the doors, they know that the community knows them. They speak the languages. They know that they can move fluidly, comfortably through that community, wherever that community might be. So we are right now beating the hustings to try to get everybody, as many people as we can, to apply. Our applicant pool is up around 2 million right now. We want to get to 2.7 million. There's a lot of attrition, but again, we also have to have that broad base so that we get the people that we need. So go to 2020census.gov/jobs if you're interested in becoming a census taker. Our census taking jobs pay well. I don't know what they pay exactly in
21 to
21 to,
$30 an hour.
right, 21 to 30, and that's a range that
It's
fits
not bad.
wherever people, it's not bad. It's flexible. You can log in anytime, work anytime. It's kind of like driving Uber or something like that. So go online and apply if you're so interested. The big employment time is May, June, July. As Ann said, this is the biggest non-military mobilization that the American government ever does. And these are good jobs that you can fit around your schedules and you can fit into your life.
We have 300 or 400 jobs for the university right now.
That's great.
So if you want to know, I will give you my.
Right. I think you'll have some people lining up behind you. Great. So here are our social channels. We hope you will follow the census. We hope you will share information about the census. We would love to entertain your questions. Again, my goal is to make sure you leave feeling pretty knowledgeable about what it is and how it works and why it's important for your community. So happy to answer your questions.
Gloria's gonna say.
Okay, great. Come on
Thank you.
down,
Great
Gloria.
presentation.
Yes.
It's amazing. Hello, everybody. Hola, ¿cómo están? Oh, come on. Let's wake up. So, gracias, muy bien. One of the things I want to tell you, the reason why we are mobilizing the students here on campus, 49% answered the survey in 2010. 49%. The state of Maryland lost the ability to gain $1 billion, no pesos, $1 billion because of the undercounted communities. I would like for you to consider to help us to change that rhetoric, that message, that story. The Prince George's County, $363 million didn't come in. So now, what does that have to do with you? Well, how many of you want scholarships or are in Pell Grants? Raise your hand if you are always looking for financial support. So you don't have to be, wow. See, we'll see it. That money that is coming for that. So the university partnered with the U.S. Census. We are one of the partners.
That's right.
And one of the things that we're trying to engage our community is for you to complete the form, particularly for those who live off campus. Who live off campus here? Good number. Well, you will complete that form. The students that live on campus, under the university properties, 13,000 beds are our properties. We are going to send your information to the census. This is the first time that the census is allowing us to do that. But anyone, and we only share it with them because the Department of Education allowed us to share with you your name, your age, because if that's the only way that we know, your age and your address. That's it. 3 things. Everybody else had to complete 9 things. We're only going to be providing your name, your age, and your address. And you live here on campus. Now, the other component that I wanted to tell you is about the civic engagement. We have 2 constitutional duty in this, living in this country. Which one is number 1? Or number 2? Voting. Voting. Voting and census. There are some residents that they cannot do voting. When I came here to the United States, I didn't do it for 10 years, and after 1997, I became a U.S. citizen. I vote every time, every election, whenever I have a chance. Census is critical. We're missing a lot of funding right now. And the immigrant community is threatened. It is afraid to complete this. So I want the college students to come out and be that civic engagement, to be ambassadors, to talk about why it's also important for them too. We cannot 100% tell you that the data is secure. They are trying to do their best. But the only thing that we're fighting here is the lack of resources that every community is missing right now. So I'm asking you to consider to complete that form for those who live off campus, to make sure when you get that postcard telling you to complete this form, that you get your friends. Listen, if only 5 people need to live in that house and there are 10 living there, we don't care. Count every one of them. We're not sharing that, as they said, the data is secure. We're not sharing the information with the city government. But that's important to know how many people live in College Park, live in the community here in Prince George's County, so that we don't miss that again. So, March 12th, they start sending all those postcards that you're going to be getting. For some of you, and some others will be getting in their homes. From March 12th to the 20th, it's going to be a link. And then what we're going to do, the university will be sending a mass email message. And then the college, each college will be working with us to kind of remind you to complete and to be part of the process. April 1st is not April Fool Day, which I don't know why they selected April 1st full day. April 1st, we're going to have drumming for the census. So at the amphitheater, close to the Newborough Cultural Center, next to the Stampa Student Union, we're going to have a drumming, step dancing. We're going to have a big movement for you to start getting in the idea that I need to complete this form. So we're going to have US also a representative from the census, so we're giving you all this information. April 4th is Good Neighbor Day. Who knows about Good Neighbor Day here? Oh, I see some hands. Oh, I'm excited. Good Neighbor Day is a way for us to be working in the city of College Park and Greater College Park doing beautification projects. And one of those will be 150 volunteers that will be doing canvassing around the city of College Park. And you will be a great ambassadors because we'll be your college students. We'll be your classmate or people that you know if you live in the fraternity homes. I know you have a lot of satellite homes, that could be another good connection. And for you to work with us. So I encourage you to come talk to us. Our office, our email is oce@umd.edu. And if you want to be involved with a Good Neighbor Day, it's goodneighborday.umd.edu. That's our website. So you can find more information and get involved. We're going to be giving a lot of stuff, a lot of good things, not for the landfill, for you to use, and getting ready for this big process. I cannot find more things to say to you, to plead to you to help us with this process. It's critical, and every individual here counts. Thank you.
I can't emphasize enough what you said. And, if I could say a couple more words, those folks of you who raised your hand when you were asked if you lived on campus, that demographic is one of the most severely undercounted demographics in the country, equaled only by young children 0 to 5. So, we talk about trusted voices, and we talk about partners, and that's important. But you're trusted voices for anybody who you talk to who listens to you. And if you can help them understand that, yeah, everybody in the household has to be counted, you can help us address that severe point of undercount in our census. And it does. It translates into billions, trillions of dollars over the decade. There are now analyses that push the number up to $1.5 trillion a year. Our analysis is more conservative, but whatever it is, it's a lot, right? And so that's critical for your communities. That's critical for the communities that we all care about. So I can't thank you enough for everything you said and everything you're doing for us.
Thank you very much, too.
We'll take questions now. Bring the mic to you.
Hi there, Adam Nixon with the university. I thought the ad campaign was really outstanding, from the logo to the font choices to the videos, the sign there. What's the process by which that comes together? How much of it is done in-house by the Census Bureau's communication office, and how much of it is an outside advertising agency? Can you just, because a lot of us want to work, a lot of our students want to work in that industry. So how is that done? How does that come together?
So Anne shows some of this in her talk. We advertise a contract around mid-decade, and teams of contractors come together, usually under a prime contractor. But this is a team of 13 contractors or subcontractors with Team Y&R, we call it. That's Young and Rubicam. Anne works for one of those subcontractors, or is one of those subcontractors, I can say, or the company is. But they come together and they bring their advertising expertise to the fore. And we can't do this without professional advertisers. They can negotiate advertising in ways that the government never could. But they also bring their strength to it, right? So this whole team was working together to say, this works for my community, this works for, we have experts from each community that we're trying to reach, each population group, and they're all working together to make those decisions about the fonts, about the look and feel. That platform was built and tested for the first time before we even started the messaging in the campaign. And then the Census Bureau, we had a team of about 25 people who were spent literally weeks at a time in the trenches with YNR, the team YNR, looking at all aspects of the campaign. And in many ways, we were teaching them about the census, they were teaching us about advertising. And it's by coming together that way that we were able to build, this is the most powerful campaign we've ever built. It's now, it is now over $570 million that we're investing in this campaign. It's not just about reaching hard-to-count populations, that's critical, but for every percentage point of self-response we get, we save the government $55 million because of what Ann mentioned was the most expensive part of the census, where we get poorer data quality, which is when people are walking around neighborhoods knocking on doors. So it's a long process, but it's worth every penny. We have data now that show that this comes back to us and back to the government at a very high rate. We return money every decade in the census. But it's also it is the most unique advertising campaign. We're not trying to raise the margin of sales by a percentage point. We're trying to reach everybody in the country somehow, some way that gets the message through to them in the most powerful possible way. Love to hear what you just said about it being a good campaign. We're very happy with it.
One other kind of unique thing about the campaign is that instead of having 1 or 2 or 3 ads in English and then just translating them for
That's right.
audiences, we didn't go that route. This campaign was developed, we had the platform that was tested with all the audiences, all 13 audiences, and all of them embraced Shape Your Future, although you may recall the American Indian Alaska Native, they said for us it's Shape Our Future. They're a more inclusive community, and so they were allowed to change the logo a little bit. But each of the audience groups and experts went out and created their own advertising campaign under that platform. So the ads are very different from audience to audience. They just all come back to that same message.
So what that means is that when we do an ad in Vietnamese, we're not just translating an English ad into Vietnamese. That's Vietnamese talent writing the ad, Vietnamese talent acting in the ad, shooting the ad, producing, directing the ad. It's all done within that population group, that culture. So the ads therefore resonate more effectively as possible.
You have to have a concept.
Right. And then the concept carries forward.
Thank you. My name is Sahar Kamis. I'm an associate professor here in the Department of Communication. One thing that really struck me very, very positively was the diversity and inclusion. So to your point, I think people respond the most and respond most positively when they see themselves in a certain ad or a certain campaign. It was very refreshing for me as an Arab American, Muslim American woman to see an Arab American, Muslim American woman, right, looking exactly like me and speaking in Arabic in the ad. I was like, yes, awesome, way to go. It's very important to have this kind of diversity and inclusion, like you said, not even in separate ads, but all together, like we're all Americans, because this is the beauty of being Americans, being all together. And I think it really captured that in a very beautiful way, and I think that's going to go a long way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, one of the things we learned actually in 2010, this kit was brought home to me in a very powerful way, was that one of the reasons we advertise in languages other than English, it isn't so much that the message isn't going to get through to them. People who live in this country have their ways. Even if they don't speak the English well, they know how to navigate through some. But when we do an ad in Arabic, we're saying to Arabic people, we want you in the census. That's true in every language that we advertise in. And I wish we could advertise. You know, our regional director in LA told me that the number of languages spoken in the homes of people who send their children to school in the LA school district, public school district, 122 languages are spoken in those homes. I wish we could advertise in all the languages that we speak in this country. It's one of the most remarkable things about this country and the diversity of this country. But at least we can cover over 99% of the country with the languages that we cover. And then our partners carry it the next step forward. And they're taking our materials and translating them into Farsi, for example, or into Native American dialects, American Indian dialects that are many and varied and very specific to very specific parts of the country.
I have two questions. Should I just like rattle them off or one at a time?
We'll take them both.
So when it comes to like ad space, like billboards or going to radios, do you have to pay for that, or is it just like, since you're the 2020 census, they just do it?
Great question.
And when it comes to, I just lost my train of thought. Give me a second. Oh, you were saying that with the information you get, you can know where to build hospitals or how to fix roads. Does that mean when the information comes, it's suggested, like we should put this here, or is it kind of mandatory, like we have to have these infrastructures there?
Great questions. I'll take the first one. You want to take the second one?
You could take it too.
Sure. So yes, we are paying for the ads. We are spending over $250 million in paid media. The process, just a quick window, it's interesting, back in April, Team Y&R went out to media outlets and said, we are going to be running a paid media campaign on behalf of the government. If you would like to be a part of it, submit a proposal, an RFP. Tell us who your audience is, how you can reach them, the ways you connect with your audience. And we evaluated literally thousands of proposals from all over the country in media outlets, and then made our recommendations to the government. And these are the places we think you can most effectively reach the audiences that need to be reached, using government dollars as wisely as possible. So yes, it is very much paid for billboards and gas toppers and digital ads.
But our partners do their own advertising.
That's
too.
right.
So Walmart, for example, we finally got them on board. Walmart is going to advertise through their internal messaging to their employees. They're going to advertise on the website when you go to buy stuff. They're going to put, they're spending their own, giving us their own space on their platform. AARP has been, they've dedicated staff full-time to the census, and they're working diligently through all of their communications vehicles to get information out about the census.
And we get many organizations that are doing that.
That's
So
right.
local clinics and all that doing as well. We pay for this, so this is our contribution to the census. $675 billion come to the kind of money that is going to be distributed. And that's going to be based on the head count.
But the Census Bureau provides the data. Ultimately, policymakers, whether it's your local Maryland legislature or the Congress, the governor's office, they decide where funding is going to go for things, but they look at the census data to inform, well, are people here? Are older people here? Maybe we need nursing homes here. Are younger people here? We need more schools. We're going to need schools for the next 10 years based on that data. So the Census Bureau, it's a statistical agency,
Just
right?
data.
Just
Data.
providing data
Yeah.
that others use to drive those
But the
decisions.
number is, the reason why I said it $1 billion, because they knew that I was undercounted. And each one of us approximately, our value for that form, $1,800 per year for 10 years, each person. That's the analogy that we're using in order to tell people what is it that you will contribute to this information.
So when the government distributes funding in many different aspects of government funding, it's often done by population count, by threshold. So a small town that has 40,000 people in it, if they get to over 50,000 people, they will qualify for more transportation funding than they did if they were just at 40,000. So one of the things that happens at the end of the census is we'll wind up with 49,250 for a particular community, and they're hating it because they know that they're bigger than that. We can't solve it after the fact, we have to solve it before the fact. But then also the decisions about where the traffic flow is or something like that, that's another way it impacts it. But that $675 billion you mentioned, if you start adding in the way state governments, county governments distribute money, that number starts going up. So it's a huge amount of money that's based on a hopefully accurate count. So if an undercount happens, then that community is hurt by that undercount. We use a term in the census called the differential undercount. The differential undercount means that we undercount communities that are not white at high levels, and we overcount communities that are white. We're always trying to solve that problem. It will only happen if we get our hard to count or traditionally undercounted communities all recognizing that it's important and it's safe to answer the census. And that's the work you're doing and the work so many partners are doing, that's why it's so critical. But I hope that answers your question.
I just had one quick question. So what are the main considerations when forming the question base in terms of selecting which questions to ask and how many questions in total will be asked?
So I guess that one's for
That
me
one's
too,
for you.
right?
That's a great question. One quick
So
question.
Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution requires that we have to do a population count. Then the Bill of Rights, the amendments to the Constitution require that, and especially through the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act, require that we have to distribute political representation fairly across different population groups. So we drive the decennial census, the 10 questions that Ann showed you, are driven by that constitutional set of requirements that are based on our Constitution. We do a survey called the American Community Survey on a rolling basis throughout the decade. That has 57 questions or 75, depending on how you want to count them. That's where we get the rich demographic data and economic and social data on the population. And that's driven always by Congress tying any kind of regulatory or legal requirement to a particular data nugget that's related to that question. So we don't add a question arbitrarily to either the 10-question form or the decennial census form. We have to do it. We have to go through a rigorous process to make sure it's either grounded in congressional action or in the Constitution. One of the things that was so interesting about the Supreme Court decision over the summer was that Justice Roberts said that the case was not made convincingly enough that citizenship should be on the form, that there's a constitutional requirement for the citizenship question. He wasn't saying that it wouldn't necessarily be unconstitutional. He was saying the case was not made. And that was how he arrived at his majority vote. It underscores the point that we don't take this lightly. It's the Constitution that drives those questions, those 10 questions, for the decennial census.
One of my member here, Roshan Halali. Is anything else that we needed to tell the group? Do we cover everything for our plan?
I could talk for 2 more hours.
Just want to make sure that I cover all the bases.
Watch your mailbox, and if you're like a certain family member of mine in the audience who never goes to her mailbox, you'll be able just to go online to the website. You'll be seeing digital ads that will drive you directly to the internet self-response option starting in late March.
We're live on March 12th. And you can answer online from March 12th to July 31. So thank you all.